Hey yo, football fans, it's another great year. Fantasy football fiends, grab your beer. Giving you the best draft tips for all your picks. Starts and sits to the waiver wire fix. From my drafts galore to stats that's hardcore. Triple F does it all, have y'all screaming more. So sit back, relax, let the experts prevail. JT Magnum, Siggy Guns never fail. What's up, everyone, and fantasy football fans? Welcome to Fantasy Football Fiends with JT Magnum and Siggy Guns. And we are into week 3 now of the fantasy football season. And first and foremost, lots of injuries. Lots of injuries to talk about, but we won't discuss them on this particular episode. I'll have a special injury show later on in the week to talk about people to pick up and who's injured this week and who possibly won't play. But we're going to get right into waiver wire pickups for this week. And Siggy, who's your top 3 waiver wire pickups for this week?
Well, top 3 obviously is because of these injuries that happened. We'll talk about that in another show. But I have Rainey out of Tampa Bay, the running back who's replacing Doug Martin, who did very well, enough to where I think he's going to be, pretty much a must pickup. And then the other 2 I had was Pierre Thomas and Asiata, even though Adrian Peterson is back. We'll talk about that in another show.
Yep, my 3 pickups for waiver wires also was Bobby Rainey. I also have Niall Davis and Niles Paul. Niles Paul had an awesome game in Jordan Reed's absence, and he's explosive. He's like basically a wide receiver playing tight end. But yep. We're gonna get right into the stardoms this week. Who's your 3 quarterback stardoms?
My 3 quarterback stardoms is Tony Romo, Phillip Rivers. And here's going to be the shocking one. I'm going to go with Hoyer. Now, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Tony Romo. Tony Romo has had a horrible start so far to the season. He probably even more so than Tom Brady. But all he needs is the St. Louis Rams. For some reason, he always kills them. And I think Tony Romo is actually going to do real good. He's going to be playing in the dome. And he usually plays good in artificial. So, Tony Romo.
Oh, cool. Mine are Luke McCown, Joe Flacco, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Luke McCown going against the Falcons. Falcons are giving up a lot of yards passing, like a ridiculous amount of yards passing. And I look for Luke McCown to have a back to normal game following his game this week against the Rams that he sucked in. So who's your running backs?
Running backs is a little tough. I'm going to go ahead and pick Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson for one. Rashad Jennings as for the other one, and I'm going to go with Darren Sproles, and I'm going to talk about Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles is now all of a sudden the main back, it seems, for screens and everything, and if you're a LaShawn McCoy fan, or an owner especially, you have to be upset seeing this, but it doesn't look like he's going away anytime soon. In a PPR league, he's a must-start now. He's going to get 7 to 8 catches a game, it looks like. He's heavily involved in screen, 2-minute offense. I can't believe it, but Darren Sproles is actually like the better back right now out of the system.
Yeah, he's having a phenomenal season already. I mean, usually they use McCoy for all these things, but Sproles is so explosive and so shifty and hard to see that he's just it's amazing. But my 3 are Stephen Ridley, Reggie Bush, and Jonathan Stewart. Stephen Ridley's going against the Raiders. They're giving up 200 yards per game rushing. It's ridiculous. And yeah. New England, what do? They like to run. They like to do play action. Stephen Ridley's had 100 yards last week against Minnesota. Of course, he's got to be able to get over 100 yards, maybe even 150, and a couple touchdowns this week. So look for that to happen. Who's your wide receivers this week?
Well, obviously, you hit it up about Atlanta giving up a lot of them. Vincent Jackson is one of them. I'm going to go with Terrence Williams, and the other one is Sanu. And I'll go and talk about Sanu. With A.J. Green injured, Sanu was doing everything, and it just looks like Andy Dalton might finally have the other receiver that he's been wanting in the system. And even with A.J. Green, if he comes back, I see Sanu having a big day.
Yeah, Sanu looked awesome. He had a nice long catch in that game last week, too. My wide receivers are Percy Harvin, Keenan Allen, who burnt Richard Sherman. We won't talk about that. T.Y. Hilton and T.Y. Hilton. Percy Harvin we'll talk about. He killed Denver last year. His speed, him in the game is what killed Denver last year. And lo and behold, they're playing Denver this week. Denver has a little bit of hard time covering some cornerbacks, especially fast wide receivers. So I look for Percy Harvin to actually go off because he had a quiet game this past week, even though he had a touchdown that technically was out of bounds, but he did have a touchdown. So I look for Percy Harvin actually to go off this week against Denver. Who's your 3 tight end must starts?
I'm going to go with Bennett again. I'm going to go with Greg Olsen. And I'm going to go with Charles Clay. And I'll talk about Charles Clay. It looks like Miami is still looking at him in the red zone. And Kansas City's defense, even though it held the Denver Broncos to pretty respectable points, Julius Thomas was wide open everywhere. So I just figured Clay's going to be open everywhere.
Yeah, my 3 tight ends are Antonio Gates, Mercedes Lewis, and Jared Cook. The reason I picked Jared Cook this week is because Dallas has given up 2 touchdowns to Vernon Davis the first week. Second week, they gave up 142 yards receiving to Delaney Walker. And now Jared Cook comes to town, and Cowboys just can't seem to defend tight ends. So I look for Jared Cook probably to get 100 yards today or this week, along with a couple touchdowns or maybe a touchdown or 2. Who's your top?
Actually, I think.
Go ahead.
Before you touch up on Mercedes Lewis, he got hurt also. He's out 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, he is? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, then look for their backup.
Harbor.
because
Clay Harbor.
Yeah, because
go.
Indianapolis is also struggling against tight ends.
I agree.
Look at that fantasy update live right on the show.
Live.
We
right
record these very early, so.
Yeah, so especially we want to apologize for saying Palmer's a must start, considering that he wound up not playing.
Yeah, exactly. We record these very early. We don't do them the day before or anything like that. I mean, we have a lot of production that goes into this. So, thank you for the update.
There you go. All right, so you start defenses.
Yep.
Dallas, New England, and Baltimore. And obviously, we'll talk about New England. They're playing the Oakland Raiders. Do you need any other explanation?
Exactly. And my 3 defenses: New England, the Patriots, the Colts, and the Texans. Texans have been phenomenal, but the Colts, they're going against the Jaguars. Do you need any explanation? So who's your sit-ems for this week for quarterback?
For quarterback, so I'm going to go Kirk Cousins. I'm going to go Colin Kaepernick, and then Alex Smith. I'll go ahead and touch up on Colin Kaepernick. Arizona's defense is actually pretty good, solid so far, and I think Kaepernick has been struggling. I just think he could be more exposed. We saw what happened with Eli Manning. He got flustered, and I think even though Kaepernick has the legs, he might be good rushing-wise to get you some points there. I just don't know about him throwing up on that defense all over the place, especially not at their place.
Yeah, he's actually on my sit-em list this week too. Colin Kaepernick, he's struggling, and I think he's struggling because of the offensive coordinator. They put him in. They're too conservative with their play calls. It's too predictable, and it's been like that for the last 3 years, and it's annoying to watch. But Ben Roethlisberger and Andy Dalton, and you touched up on Colin Kaepernick. I just said it right there and then. I mean, he's right now a must-sit until he can prove otherwise, because that offensive coordinator, I think, has him under wraps. So who's your sit-em running backs?
Trent Richardson, Le'Veon Bell, and Matt Forte, and I'll talk about Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson is being outplayed by Ahmad Bradshaw in every facet of the game. He fumbled, that got him benched for a little bit. Trent Richardson is a bust, and if you picked him up thinking that he was going to be the guy now this year, especially since I gave a first-round pick for him last year, it's time to start considering even dropping him all the way. He's that bad right now.
Yeah, he's right now. I don't know what's wrong with him. I mean, he had 70 yards, but it took him way more carries than Ahmad Bradshaw took to get 70 yards. It was ridiculous.
Exactly.
My sits for running back are Matt Forte this week, Eddie Lacy, and Le'Veon Bell as well. And Eddie Lacy's going against the Lions. And the Lions are ridiculous against the run. And he just seems to have the toughest matchups every week so far at the start of the season. But a lot of people are saying start him this week. I'm saying sit him. Period. I mean, the Lions are tough against the run. It's hard to run against them, period. So why even put it when you know they're going to end up passing the ball with Aaron Rodgers? So who's your sit 'em receivers?
Victor Cruz, Patterson, and James Jones. James Jones has actually been the bright spot for Oakland Raiders. but now he's on Revis Island, and so far Revis has actually done pretty good. The New England defense has actually held steady as much as I thought they could potentially can. I figured they'd be a little bit bad so far in the early going, but James Jones has been pretty good, and I think it's going to be a bad week, though, if you anticipate him to continue it.
Yeah, my sit-in wide receivers this week are Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, and Mike Wallace. And the reason I have Demaryius Thomas on there, obviously the LOB. They're going to be pissed. They're pissed off. They got so-called exposed last week. That's all that's been the talk this week. Richard Sherman wouldn't even speak to media. So I look for them to basically try to shut Denver down. So Demaryius Thomas, unfortunately, is going to probably get the blunt of that. Who's your tight ends?
Vernon Davis. We touched up on Colin Kaepernick's struggles there. Julius Thomas against Seattle. And I'm going to have to go Pitta against the Browns. I'll go ahead and talk about Pitta. The Browns and Ravens, they usually either have two types of games, defensive or blowouts. And Pitta, though, is somebody that I think is always potential to blow up if there's going to be a game like that. I just think in Cleveland it's going to be more of a defensive struggle. And I think even though I think the Ravens should have a pretty good game, I would say that Pitta is going to be on the short end of the stick there.
Yeah, I would have to agree there. And my three tight end, and Vernon Davis might be hurt. He might not even play this week.
Really?
Yeah, he was on crutches after the game, so that's another thing. We'll talk about that as I do the injury show later this week. If he is injured, the Niners hardly ever, showcase their injuries, so it's hard to find out, but we'll figure it out later. But my three tight ends are Heath Miller, Jermaine Gresham, and Niles Paul this week. And Heath Miller because of Carolina's defense. Carolina's defense is ridiculous. And with Kuechly out there, or Luke Kuechly or whatever his name is, sorry if I mispronounce it, but the guy is phenomenal on defense, and when they just shut tight ends down. So with Heath Miller, I have a feeling he's been doing well this year, but I don't think he's gonna do well against Carolina. So who's your sit-em defenses?
Pittsburgh, Seattle, and the Miami Dolphins. And we're going to talk about the Legion of Boom here. They might be pissed off and all that stuff, but I can't imagine what Peyton Manning's feeling after that Super Bowl embarrassment. And the offense of Denver can't pick it up. I just have a feeling it could be the perfect storm, but I don't want to take a chance. If I have another defense, I would rather play it because I don't want it to be a shootout and have points deducted from my defense. So I would say proceed with caution using Seattle this week.
I'm scared of that team because it always somehow the big games, it always rains perfectly for passing teams. And then next thing you know, passing teams can't pass in the rain, and then the defense succeeds. And it's just they have the perfect place to play. That's what it is.
That's true.
It's always
That's
rainy,
true.
cold, and windy, and teams that come in can't pass the ball because it's hard to pass there in the rain and stuff like that. So to me, they're lucky. But whatever. My three defenses are the Vikings, Lions, and Bills this week. Lions playing the Packers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to be on fire, I think. I think he's one of those games where he's going to be throwing the ball all over the freaking place, all over Detroit. I know they got a pass rush and everything, and Green Bay doesn't have the greatest of offensive line and protection for Rodgers, but at the same time, he gets rid of the ball so fast it doesn't matter. So I look for the Lions to have a struggle this week, so don't start them if you have them. Who's your three sleepers of the week?
Three sleepers of the week. Now, I didn't touch up on him a little bit, but it's going to have to be Rainey. And I just have a feeling that Doug Martin is not going to come back this week. It's all dependent on that. But playing against the Falcons, you're talking about somebody that can catch and run and somebody that's very fast, and he might have a Darren Sproles-like game. The other ones that I would say is going to be, obviously, the Chicago receivers, Santonio Holmes in particular, and because the Jets just have no cornerbacks. And then the other one is going to be the Panthers. As a whole unit, I would say Cam Newton. I'll go ahead and pick him as a sleeper. A lot of people will probably be scared about the Pittsburgh defense, but Cam Newton should have a good game.
My sleepers of the week are one that you talked about earlier, Ahmad Bradshaw, Andrew Hawkins, and Kelvin Benjamin. And we'll talk about Andrew Hawkins. He's going against the Ravens. The Ravens struggle with speedy, shifty receivers. And I have a feeling that with him in the slot, and he's been doing well already, with him in the slot, the Ravens are going to have a hard time covering him this week. And I look for him to have a pretty good game. So that wraps up the show, guys. I want to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment. Don't forget to ask us questions on Twitter or on here. We do our best. Siggy was all over it this week, trying to. I was at work all week, so it was hard for me to get to the comments. But Siggy was all over them. So kudos to Siggy this week, and stay tuned for the injury update this week, and maybe, I don't know, possibly anything else. If breaking news happens, like with Adrian Peterson or anything else, or people getting suspended, we'll try to put out a video to let you guys know as fast as we can. All right? So for Fantasy Football Fiends, Siggy Guns, and JT Magnum, we out. Peace.
Peace.